Okay, thank you all for coming. We'll call this meeting of the Nisswa regular council meeting of the Nisswa City Council for September 21st to order. If you'd all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Our first item is approve the agenda.
So Mayor, I move.
You have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Next is the consent calendar.
I'll move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried. Next item we have on our agenda is open forum. This is a time for anyone in the public that wants to come up and bring up anything that is not on the agenda. We'll give you time to do so on items later. If anyone has a comment they wish the council to know, please come on up and state your name. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Department presentations. First up is the golf cart pilot project, Amber.
We'll keep you coming up. Well, for you that don't know me, I am Amber. I am the second director here. Sing on. Hey. I think y'all heard that, but so earlier this spring, City Council approved an ordinance to allow golf carts on city streets. And kind of worked through the idea that we are going to do some observation to see what's actually happening, not just try and guess. So spent a few hours, the priorities that we're kind of shooting for with this pilot program, safety, clarity, knowing the rules and the expectations, being consistent with that, trying to educate, regulate speeds, user types, things like that. So that was a little recap here of what the priorities were. Next slide. So this is kind of how we went about it. Looking at the progression here this summer from Memorial Day to Labor Day, we did observations, social media advertising. There was some write-ups in the paper about the ordinance and getting permits. And we had a survey online and some QR codes that people could get more information on. And then I just consolidated all of the data. And that's what I'm going to present to you tonight. Recap of some of the locations that we studied. Tried to focus in on downtown and different accesses into downtown, as well as along Lower Roy Lake Road, 77 there to kind of see some of where the future trail, the Gull Lake Trail will go. And so those are the ideas that were proposed as to where we studied. So summary here, broke it down into 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. for you. So you can see the different user groups, pedestrian, cyclists, golf carts, and various forms of off-highway vehicles. All these numbers are rounded to the closest amount since you can't have a half a golf cart. So average users there down at the bottom for all 12 hours of the day. There was an average of 4 pedestrians per outing. Most outings were about 30 minutes in duration. 6 cyclists, 1 golf cart, and 1 off-highway vehicle. Breakdown of the various days that we did observations and the amount that we did it at each location. So we spent a lot of time on Fridays out there looking, seeing what was happening, the different movement patterns, and focused most of our effort through the downtown area. And then again, through the lower Roy Lake, Hazelwood area. Try to keep it fairly consistent as to when we were out there. You know, most of the days were warmer, sunny. Big thank you to Officer Hall for gathering those speeds for us. Biker speeds averaged 12 to 19 miles per hour. Golf cart was registered at 17 miles per hour downtown, and the off-highway vehicles averaged 25 miles an hour along Lower Roy Lake Road. So appreciate Officer Hall's help in getting those data points for us. Again, very preliminary, just as, you know, it's in whatever he happened to run across when he was out there. So we did add designated parking at the pickle and kind of the grass area there. Golf carts were spotted parking in the pickle parking lot at City Park, Legion Historical Society, Post Office Chamber, Rafferty's Big X, and First Western Bank. Not in the golf cart parking.
Oh.
So there's that. The survey that we did was extremely basic, did not ask any sort of follow-up questions. So very preliminary, just inquiring. This one is how to use Nisswa roads. There was 37 respondents in total. Obviously, most use a motor vehicle, but also the next two highest were walking and running, biking and rollerblading on roads. Next one is how to use the trails. As you can guess, walking, running, biking, rollerblading are the highest. And third was snowmobiles. Just asking if people are aware if golf carts could be utilized, that they knew that they could be driven on city roads. 27 said yes, 10 said no. And this is kind of where I found most interesting, the next two slides. This is obviously a perception. How safe do you feel? There was no criteria of how you define safe. There was no reasoning for their answer. But how safe do you feel using Nisswa roads? Almost 25% of respondents said unsafe or somewhat unsafe. So when you compare it to the next slide, which is using Nisswa trails, that decreased to just under 6% felt unsafe. So again, it's a very, very small, extremely small survey. But of that, I think there is something to further investigate within this, how people's perception of safety being on the road versus on a trail. I think that will be good for the city to investigate as we go on and we kind of look at, you know, the Gull Lake Trail being added, any other possible trail connections, our downtown corridor. I think those are all specific areas to look at in terms of how pedestrians move and their perception of safety and what that may mean to them. And the last question on the survey is, are you a resident? So the vast majority were residents, 26 out of the 37. So in short, I think things that we can do, continue educating, continue observing. And I did not observe anything that would dictate us needing to change policy at this time. I would say everyone, I mean, the speeds that we clocked, they were reasonable speeds. Adults were driving the vehicles. They were staying on the extreme right-hand side. So all things listed in our policy, all those safety concerns, in my observation, that's what was occurring. So I don't see a need to change policy at this time. We are now up to 39 golf cart permits. And so that would be my recommendation, is that we continue just educating, continue with our policies as is. And then again, looking at different maybe trail or sidewalk connections in terms of people's perceived safety being on a road versus being on a trail. So questions, comments, ideas for the future?
Have you been in touch, I know Grandview with their expansion, it's a lot of their managed property units, a lot of those owners have their own personal golf carts and things that they have there. Have you been in touch with anyone at Grandview? to
Yeah,
let them
I
know?
stopped in at Grandview early June. I gave the rec center a couple copies of, as they rent out some golf carts there. So all of their golf carts are permitted and they're familiar with the ordinance and all of that. I also stopped by the front desk. Kelby at the rec center was gonna pass the information along to the person that does the real estate, and make sure that that was handed out. So we've had several permits for people that are in those locations.
One other person that Grandview that you might want to, have Kelby talk to if he hasn't already, he probably has, is the managed property coordinator. She's usually the one that deals directly with all the
Is there a
associations. Yes,
Yep, that's who he was gonna talk to.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first year we've done this. Do you anticipate having another survey similar to this next year to see if anything is changing perceptions? First year, it's always hard to know because it's brand new.
Yes, I do think this is a good thing for us to look at in whatever amount of time. But knowing that next year we're gonna be hopefully constructing the Gull Lake Trail, I think that'll change a lot of the user pattern on Lower Roy Lake Road. And so I would recommend that this is something that we do in some capacity, whether it's next year or the year after, but with, again, once or twice, at least in the next 5 years, as this becomes more known, as the trail system changes and where pedestrians and, more of our seasonal residents, how they're utilizing the roads and trails.
And it might be very handy to have a larger database. We're very limited. It's difficult.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
It's helpful, for sure helpful.
I just think it's great information that was well done, especially for a first year. I think it was well executed and really have a baseline to start with. Because I kind of agree, next year where the trail will be built, but then the year after that to look and see what changes would be really, so no, I thought it was very well thought out and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned.
Next is Spirits of Nisswa, Brian.
Thank you, council, for letting me give this presentation. For the audience that doesn't know me, I'm Brian Farrell. I manage Spirits in Nisswa. Once a year, I give an annual report to the council on what we've done in the past and where we are today and what we look forward for the future. I think everybody's seen some of the numbers. I wanted to put together some numbers just to kind of give us a base on how we have done the last 5-6 years for the first of the year through August. Those are some of our major months. June, July, August are our power months for sales and for seeing customers and obviously making money. So I remember last year, I stood here and we were having such a great year. And everybody at the council, and I was in agreement with you, you're saying, well, let's see you beat those numbers last year. And my response was kind of a smart aleck response and say, well, since I've been with Spirits, we've never been down. And we are up this year. I don't know how the heck we're up, but people have money. They want to have fun. They're maybe not traveling out in, as far away as they were in the past. So we'll definitely take advantage of it. Very happy to see that we're up $140,000 for the year at the end of August. And we had just an unbelievable July. I don't know how we did that many sales. I like to look at it and say, we've had this year, if you go anywhere, all you see is one thing: help wanted, help wanted, help wanted for every business out there. Spirits in Nisswa, we've had the best help we've ever had. And since I've been there. So that takes a lot of pressure off all the management at, you know, we smile more when we have enough help there. We can depend on people. If I'm gone, I know that the store is going to be okay with who's ever there, the management or a team leader. So that was very thankful because literally I look back and how much we were up in July with the minimal hiccups that we had. I'm just thrilled to death and I can't stop smiling when I think about how much we did in July and how well it went. But it's kind of cool to see each year, you know, how we've progressed on how much it's been up. Now, I look at this year, we're up $140,000. In the last 4 years, usually it's around 2 to 250. So we're not up quite as much as we annually are, but if we equate that doubling how much we're up last year, we still have to be very happy. Now, with that being said, September has been a little soft, and I'm just wondering if people are just taking a little break after the summer, having fun, or if it has to do with the extra unemployment money going away. I guess time will tell. But I still feel that we're going to, at the end of the year, we'll look back and we'll definitely be up. I don't know that we're going to be up an extra $140,000 over last year's numbers, but I would definitely foresee being up at a decent amount. I wanted to show a few improvements. Now, every year you guys probably hear me screaming. It's like, hey, we don't have enough room. Well, we just made some changes in the back room to utilize better the space that we had. And in the spring, we went and purchased for half the back room, new shelving. And once again, I go in the back room, organizing things, stocking things. And it's just refreshing to know that it can help keep things organized. And you see the gray shelving on here and the tan in the middle. Those are all new. We did have shelving off to the left where the gray ones were, but they just were not they weren't as user friendly, and we weren't able to keep things as organized. So that took a tremendous amount of pressure off the back room. We know if you have to zip back and stock something, you know where it's at. Now, later on, Bino had this picture up. If we have the money in the budget, I'm just kind of waiting until the end to see if we do or not. But we do want to add more gray shelving to the other side. But that's something that we can just pick up at Home Depot, literally in the last 2-3 weeks of the year, if we had the money in the budget. Up front was really nice because we had just wire racking where this turbis is. It was okay, but it was just okay. We actually had the shelving on top of the cooler in the basement of the community center. So I put it all together, got it organized, and literally that week customers would come in, they're like, wow, you guys really expanded your turbis shelving. We didn't expand it at all. We just made it more organized, and it has more of an impact as you walk in. So we're very pleased with that. We're able to put the tags on there and make it a little clearer as far as what we're selling this product for. I'm always looking at the store. My mind is never slows down as far as how can we make a change to improve the store. And that was just one of them. I was working on something else today, just little changes here and there that are relatively inexpensive. But that was, the turbis is just one example where literally it didn't cost us anything. It was a little bit of my time and some of the help's time to put it together, but it makes a big impact overall. One of the items, this is in my budget on the next page, is a new cigar humidor. The one that we have right now looks nice, but the rollers on the door are shot and it's probably 17 to 20 years old. So we're looking at this one. It's going to be a little bigger. So it's a little taller and give us a little more presence on our cigars. Talked a little bit about purchasing more shelving for the back room, so I don't need to go into more detail on that. But some of the other areas in the middle of the store, we have boxes with product on top, and we just want to have it match the rest of our store a little bit more. So we do want to purchase more shelving either this year or next year, early next year, to finish off the center, make it for our Sauvignon Blancs and Pinot Grigios, customers sometimes have a hard time finding those products. If we buy the shelving, it will make our store look a little more complete and definitely more professional. Another area we were talking about, we wanted to actually paint in the spring, but with our pandemic, we had some people that were quarantined and just little hiccups here and there. So that had to fall to the wayside. Now with fall coming up, we're going to have a little bit more time. We're not 100% sure if we're going to utilize the city maintenance or if I want to utilize the people at Spirits. One of the issues that I always have every year is having enough help in the summer. But then once summer is over, I have to keep those people busy. So if I can find little jobs for them to do in the off season, it will keep them around and it will pay dividends in the summer when we really need people. So that is possibly one of them, to have some of the staff help paint some of the walls. We have some broken floor tiles. So our floor, it definitely needs to be waxed. I've been holding off on it because I'm trying to get someone to repair some of the broken floor tiles. And that is really hard on a small job to get a contractor to come in and do something. Well, I wasn't able to. Then I called city maintenance guys and they said, okay, we can do it. Well, the guy came back in today and he says, I have time and I can probably do it next week. So we're going to have about 20 floor tiles fixed. Then we can get the floors stripped and waxed so that they look a little nicer. Other miscellaneous items. Probably one of the things that stresses me out the most is our point of sale system. And I think that's with any business. If our point of sale system does not work properly, or if it gives us hiccups and customers can't use a credit card, or if it's down, that is, it's very stressful at the time because they want to buy products. They want to get in the door, out the door as soon as possible. Well, we have had more problems than I think is acceptable. So I've been working with their company, trying to figure out why it's having problems. And we did get some different equipment in from them last week. And I've installed it. We're seeing if that helps or not. If that does not help and we have another year like we did this year with the point of sale system, we'll have to definitely make a change. What I really like the way our system works when it works, but there's other systems out there that I think are more dependable, but they just they're not as user-friendly. And that's a problem. If we're going to spend $10,000 on a point of sale system, I would like it to be as user-friendly and more dependable. So I would like to have options if our system doesn't work to meet with other companies. And I've met with one so far and I want to meet with more just in case we have to make a switch. Another thing that we're working on this year is our education to our employees. I just think it's real important that our employees understand wine. They're never, well, they might be, but they're not going to be like total professionals on and knowledge on every single item in our store. We have way too many items in it. If you go into any liquor store, you're not going to find one help that knows every product in there. But if we can move the needle so that they know a little bit more about wine, a little bit more about beer and spirits or customer service, then we're winning the battle. So with Josh and myself, and I've been working with other municipals, we are putting together a system that it's LMS, it's called Learning Management System, where they can watch videos, they can have handouts, and there'll be tests on there, and then we can track it. So each employee will have goals. This next month or this next quarter, we want you to go through this course, and this course. And over time, all that knowledge will add up. They're not going to learn it in one day, but over a year, they will definitely become more knowledgeable in all the products. One of the issues with a liquor store, sometimes you get staff coming in and they're hesitant to work at a liquor store because they don't know about a certain product. Wine can be intimidating for some people, but if we can give them the knowledge so that they are, their fear factor of a certain category is less, then they'll be happier working there. Because I know for myself, if I can go out and talk to people about products and explain to them, that's the best part about my job. Not standing here giving a presentation, just a little humor. Now, Jenny and I, we've been working on job descriptions, pay structure. Every year we struggle with trying to pay our help enough, trying to figure out what's the right pay. How do we give a pay increase to a certain employee? And quite frankly, sometimes I feel like I'm coming here and I'm begging. We want to try to eliminate some of those items and just have it more structured. So we'll have a job description, a promotion for, and I'm just going to use like a sales clerk, because that's kind of the position we're talking about for our part-time employees. We'd like to, right now we have one position which is called a sales clerk. We'd like to have a sales clerk number 1, a sales clerk number 2, and a sales clerk number 3. Now, these are just, we just sat down and talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So none of this is concrete, but it is a goal that we'd like to do. And then have a key holder, and each one of those different positions would have a job description and a different pay scale for them. And with each one of those, a person, I would definitely do a job evaluation for that employee. I don't like giving job evaluations, but I think they're very important for employees. Some of the other things that we are working on that I don't have on here, and Jenny and Ross have been in contact with our landlord, Mr. Schaefer. So we'll be meeting with him soon and discussing the lease, trying to get things, get an agreement in play for the future of Spirits staying there. And hopefully we'll have some information in the future on that. I just wanted to mention, people ask me where I work, and I tell them for the city of Nisswa, Spirits in Nisswa. And just to let you know, when I say that, I have a proud feeling in my heart, because the city of Nisswa is a great place to work. I think we have one of the best councils we've ever had here since I've been here. So I'm very thankful to have you guys in my back. Jenny does a great job for us. Do I agree with everything? No, but you guys don't agree with everything I do either. But that's pretty much everything I have. Is there any questions or comments?
It might be a good point to let the people in the audience know why we have a liquor store and what we do with the profits at the end of the year.
Sure. Now, I want to give you a little story. Well, first, I'll tell you, each year, the city, we give to the city between 200 and 225,000, somewhere in there, in revenue, profit to the city to help lower property taxes. And so when people come in, I like to say we're a backyard liquor store, because we're giving back to the community as much as we can. And some of the things, I spend a lot of time drilling our vendors and making sure that we're getting the very best price we can get on products. And I go out and I go to other stores, I price shop, and making sure that we're making the right amount of money. I think we need to make sure that our store is very profitable. So I spend a lot of time on that. And I do that because going back to the backyard liquor store, so that we can give back to the community. And if we can help the citizens, I feel they're going to help us and support us. So it's basically, we're scratching each other's backs on that. But consistently for the last, well, at least the last 10 years, we've given a minimum of $200,000 back to the city to lower taxes, property taxes in different areas. And I see us doing that in the future for as long as we'll be there. And we try to help out any organization that comes in. If they're doing Nisswa, pretty good golf tournament is this coming week. So we try to help them out with different items to help their promotion. We've helped the Firemen's Association. So any benefit out there, we're always willing to try to help them with that also. And if the audience has any questions, feel free to ask.
I just want you to know I'm doing my part and plan a lot of bourbon.
Oh, fantastic.
FYI.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And then a decent price.
All right,
Nothing else?
Brian, thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we will go on to city reports, city administrator.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the council. I don't have anything outside of what is included in your agenda tonight. Some of my items will come later on in the agenda, but I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
City attorney.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I've got one thing under my agenda place and then numerous things elsewhere, I guess, but this is an update on the Nelson Ford litigation for you council members who weren't here at the time. 2 years ago, the city of Nisswa joined a group, a substantial group of counties and cities in the state in a legal action against a Ford dealer in Fergus Falls that was alleged to have overcharged for the provision of squad cars and emergency vehicles. That case has wound its way through district court, through the Court of Appeals, and now has gotten to a mediated settlement where the city of Nisswa is involved in this mediated settlement and is being asked to approve the settlement and also the distribution of $474.18 with respect to the claims for the police vehicles that the city purchased during the relevant time frame. This is probably as good as it gets for the city. This is never going to be a windfall for the city. There are numerous municipalities and counties that are involved in this that got hit pretty hard by these and are taking a lot of relatively a lot of money out of the settlement proceeds. And they're being distributed according to the mediated settlement agreement. So if there are questions, I'm here to answer them as well as I can. Otherwise, if there are not, I need a motion from the council to approve the city signing off on this because that's what's being asked of by the attorneys who have prosecuted this action.
Okay. How many vehicles did this involve for us?
I want to say it was three over a period of 3 or 4 years or 2 or 3 years. Yeah, a couple different contracts, John.
Okay. Thanks. Well, I believe that was pretty much what we were told, you know, from the beginning. We were just happened to be involved in it type.
Yes.
I'd motion to accept the recommendation of the city attorney.
I second that.
Motion and a second, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There we go.
That's all I have. Thank you.
City engineer.
Unless you have something for me, I will discuss things later, I guess.
Okay. Great. That brings us to new business. Number 1, Clark Lake Conservation Association request to discuss Pine Trails development.
If it would please the council, I'll have those who wish to address the council and the audience say whatever they want to say first, and then I'll try to keep my comments brief at the end.
Okay, yeah, there is a 5-minute, just, you know, if you want to, not talk about yourself, but just so people realize, we try to keep it to 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to be really efficient. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah. Okay. Please let us know your name and where you live. Thank you.
Hi, Jane Aarons. I live on Clark Lake. So good evening to all of you and good evening to the staff as well. As president of the Clark Lake Conservation Association, representing our membership, and as a longtime property owner on Clark Lake, I stand before you once again to ask that the city of Nisswa and specifically this council to do the right thing. The right thing is to follow the ordinances that guide you, protect Clark Lake and its shores, uphold an established conditional use permit, and direct that the Pine Trails dock be removed from Clark Lake. There's nothing to fear when you uphold the CUP that states there shall be no dock. You have nothing to fear. The permit is on your side and the permit is in black and white. What is to be feared is this. When the actions that this developer took without permits and contrary to permits are given a pass or a shortcut, if you will, without filing for a new permit,
The Pandora's box has been opened for all to see and all to follow. It is clear to me that the intention and maybe even the expectation of this developer has been to have this dock in place no matter what. From the initial installation to the advertising of the dock, brochure, to the stalling tactics, to communication to new homeowners. And I'll read a quote from a Pine Trails homeowner who included me on her email to the city, which says, when I was sold my home in the Pine Trails community, I was told that we would pay a monthly fee to maintain a dock on Clark Lake, a dock that was not there legally. She goes on to say, many people have added docks and motorized watercraft to the lake. So why wouldn't our property have those same rights? That is exactly why we are here. That is exactly what we fear. You should fear that too. So it's clear to me, again, that the channel cutting was without initial permits, and now they've literally been given the approval of a dock without being directed to follow the permit process that every single person in this room would be expected and required to follow. And the developer was given this approval without any established timelines to the conditions that were attached to the dock approval. He can take days, months, or even years to accomplish any of those since he's not held accountable with timelines. The actions of the commission to grant the dock is only a success for the developer. It is, however, a precedent-setting loss for the city of Nisswa, a loss for the residents of Clark Lake, and most importantly, a major loss for Clark Lake itself. You have told us at previous meetings that you were sorry to send us away empty-handed. Remember that. The mistake of granting a dock can now be corrected. Please do the right thing now by not allowing the dock decision to stand, and we won't be leaving empty-handed again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane.
Hello, my name is MJ Bauer and my property is at 25070 Pine Lane. I have been a property owner and a taxpayer on Clark Lake for the past 18 years and a member of the Clark Lake Association Board of Directors for 11. I will be brief. I'm asking you to reject the recommendation from zoning and planning and send this decision back to them. Back to them. The conditional use permit was very clear. No dock. No dock. And yet the developer built a dock. Zoning and Planning Commission's solution is to let them have the dock and actually go back and rewrite the conditional use permit to allow for a dock. So zoning and planning has done the easy thing, not the right thing, and in effect has said to the 135 homeowners, property owners on Clark Lake, suck it up. I am hopeful that the members of the city council are better than that. And you will send this decision back to zoning and planning to come up with what is truly a solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mark Severson, attorney representing Clark Lake Association. I did receive a copy of a letter from the attorney representing the developer in that letter indicating basically disagreement and taking objection to the inflammatory nature of my correspondence. You know, I would just say it is inflammatory. My group and myself have tried Minnesota Nice through the entire process. And when it results in the way that it did, Minnesota Nice stops. And I hope that you, well, I know that you will respect that and you've had grace and patience to date. So thank you. So with that grace and patience, I want to begin with a few rhetorical questions that might seem really obvious and maybe even insulting, but they're relevant to what's happening tonight. Does the city enforce its decisions? What would the city do if the developer asked for permission to place the dock rather than forgiveness? Is the council willing to be an unbiased check and balance to the planning and zoning department? Can the council enforce what was in place and not get caught up in negotiations with the developer? Will the city enforce its decisions? So then we consider the housing development. I'm not going to go into all the details. You know that it's 45 homes and it's fairly extensive. Although there's not the detail that you would normally expect of a first tier, second tier, third tier for a development that enjoys a dock. The comment earlier is exactly right. When you allow a single dock for this many homes and the people who live in those homes and possibly other developments from this developer, you're going to likely incur heavier use than even a public landing. So look to your past boards and council. They knew. They were very spot on in their decision making, very intentional for a reason. They analyzed all these issues. They knew allowing one dock for such a development would make for a bad situation. Mr. Beaver stated in the record, a condition needs to be placed in the motion restricting riparian rights on Outlot C of no dockage or launching of watercraft. Mr. Miller stated he fully agrees with all items discussed. Then you saw those conditions be a part of the 2006 CUP. That indicated no dockage, permanent structures, or motorized vehicles allowed on Outlot C. And it also covered no trails, that the trail be centered no wider than 8 feet, and no storage on Outlot C. So there's been some back and forth with even internally. Is the CUP active? What's its status? There's even this interesting provision that seems to set apart PUDs as though there's no timeline for them to end. So I would start with the 2006 CUP is active. Let's accept what the attorney has argued. It's active, and at this point, subject to interpretation. Restrictions for Outlot C clearly apply to an outlot that extends to the water's edge. We all know what happened from the time of the preliminary plat to the final plat. Outlot C was somehow split, magically split into a non-riparian Outlot C and a riparian Outlot H. Mind you, the conditions imposed regarding no dockage, coupled with Mr. Beaver's comments surrounding the conditions, most obviously apply to a riparian lot. I don't care what letter you put on it. These are riparian outlot restrictions, period. To suggest otherwise is not intellectually honest and is a game of lawyerly obfuscation. The restrictions to Outlot C apply to Outlot H. How ridiculous is it to say we haven't placed any dock on Outlot C when it doesn't even extend to the water? Notwithstanding the failure to catch these changes from the prelim plat to the final plat, the intent of the restrictions is clear, whether it applies to Outlot C, H, or A, B, C, D. We are asking you tonight to make the record right. Do not fall for smokescreen or any threats. Whether you determine the 2006 CUP is self-terminated based on that, on the what we thought the law was, or for a lack of development or not, the dock can't be there. If it's terminated for lack of development, then the developer must apply for a new CUP. And existing regulation does not allow for a dock. If the 2006 CUP is active due to this language in the ordinance that's been brought up, then it remains an enforcement issue for the city that the city has allowed to date, but does have the power to remedy. You guys have the power to remedy this situation. So the dispute at this point is pretty simple. All these years, one thing that was clear is that no dock could be there. What changed? What needed to happen for a dock to get there in the first place? Well, a couple things. A developer ignoring directives and the assumption that the city would back down or not enforce. He was right, and then some. And who could blame the guy? take what's tolerated. One final point on the technicalities of the appeal. There's a lot of discussion with planning and zoning regarding preferences. Is it better to have a dock there or is it not? And all of that discussion, I would strongly submit, is not even relevant to what you have to decide. It's not a matter of preference. That decision was made in 2006. So consider the bulk of discussion for planning and zoning involving opinions, whether it's preferable to have a dock there or not. Any discussion on that's not relevant. It's a distraction from this real issue to determine. The city already ruled on that. Now in 2021, the city has somehow decided to overlook that unlawful placement of the dock and to officially sanction the presence of a dock. That's quite the flip. So in closing, what needs to happen is for the council to reverse the decision of planning and zoning, resolve to it that the dock must be removed and enforce the existing CUP. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, Don, do you have any?
You want me to start out?
Well, you might as well. So, well, so we'll need to, the next item on our, well, this is item one. So next item on our agenda is, I mean, do you want to discuss this now or do we want to just, okay. Thoughts?
My thoughts was that the Planning and Zoning Commission, had its meetings one or two months ago when they redid the permission to put the dock in. Relied upon comments and from the city attorney on the ordinance, that you could read the ordinance maybe two different ways. And it was subject to some, how can I use, what can I use the word? Interpretation as to what the ordinance really meant. And based upon that and upon some thoughts by the planning and zoning commission members, it was decided to go ahead and allow the dock. And that decision was not final. It came here and we approved it. I think that is probably, we got as a city about half of what we would have liked to get out of it. And the developer got about half of what he wanted out of the situation. City got the provision that there's no motorized craft going to be there, period. Kayaks, canoes, okay. And go and put a fishing line in or something at the end if you want to. The dock is a DNR issue. I don't believe it's a city issue at this point. We can let the DNR talk about why they granted their permits and whatever. I guess my feeling at this point is that I think the Planning Commission made the right choice. I think we made the right choice when we agreed with them. And I think that we should not make any substantive changes. That's my opinion. You may not agree with me, but you're asking what I think.
I guess, to where that dock is and the depth of the water, I mean, you're never going to get a motorized boat there. You can't park cars there. Really, the dock is for people just to go and sit and enjoy the lake. And I've said this before, and again, do I wish it went a different way? Do I wish the city did different things? Absolutely. I wish that we could sit here and, but there are circumstances. But again, it's it's not gonna go to where, again, you're gonna have boats there. And as long as, you know, what's written can be enforced by the city. And I guess it is kind of a question, does the city have the right for a dock or not? Is that our prerogative to say a dock or no dock, or is that a, because that's come up before too, as to where the DNR says you can have a dock, you can have a dock, or whose authority does that fall under, Tom? Is there anyone?
Well, the DNR issued permits, but not related to that dock, Ross. I'll just leave it at that.
So does the city have the authority to say no dock or dock, or it's,
The city would have the authority to say no dock if the no dock thing violated a CUP condition,
okay, which I get.
which we're back to that.
We're back to that, and then we have the whole. I just, you know, the people from the people that are in that development have the right to be at the lake. That was clear in the CUP, and for them to have a little, where they can actually sit a little bit out on the lake and sit on a bench and enjoy the lake like you guys can, that's where I've been pretty honest with that from the upfront. I don't see that as, now, again, if that dock goes out any farther and you're talking boats, I agree 100% that that property doesn't deserve that right, and but for them just to sit on a bench and enjoy the lake, I guess that's where I'm.
For myself, I see it quite, similar to that. I see that for them to be able to, sit out there and dock. But I also understand the fact that originally, but to Mr. Severson's point, the semantics came up between C and H and what's all this going to be. The one thing that I know, or that I've, in talking to other people and people talking to us and reading the messages we've gotten and stuff, well, I'm not happy with the way that the matter was handled by the developer at all. I think that the developer could have been a lot more understanding of the local area, and could have been a lot more understanding, complied, and I've actually said to him, why just pull it out and go talk to the association and work it out with them, but work where we're at. One of the problems we have is, we have our commissions and that to put these ideas together, to vet them out, to talk, to get people at the meeting. They certainly got people at the meeting, I will say that. And they definitely got, they got their, the opinions on all sides, and that's good. They made their decision based on that. I think the city has learned some very valuable lessons here. I think we've learned that some of our ordinances need to be looked at and actually all ordinances always need to be looked at, but we need to fix languages. If there's something that can be interpreted one way or another, we got to fix those things. We have to get in tune with what's currently happening and with state laws, or, what do we have to change? How do we have to do that? How do we fix the wording? One thing that I'm interested in, and I think going forward has to happen, we have to have a very strong enforcement mechanism so that our planning, our city planner can enforce the rules, enforce the agreements, enforce the terms of any CUP, and that there's substantial consequences, at least as much as we're able to have by law, for these people when they do violate them. So I've been on Clark Lake a lot of times. I did water patrol there for a while, on and off, when we got there. When I was with the sheriff's office, and it's that area. I have to agree with Ross. I don't know why the DNR did what they did, but they did, and allowed the cutting. But I think, at least I hope I'm right on this, I really do, that there's not going to be the number of people down there that we anticipate or think there might be, although it's a potential, but granted. But I think that with our planning and zoning deciding the way they did, I'm more apt to go along with the Planning and Zoning Commission on this one, but I am going to want to make sure that this thing is enforced. That dock doesn't increase. If it does anything, it decreases. But, and that there are no motorized vehicle, no motorized watercraft there. I don't know how they would get there, but that's where I'm at on it. Not happy with how everything is, but I think that from a city perspective, based on conversations with our city attorneys, our city attorney and stuff, I think that's the best position for the city to be in at this point. I know that's not what people want to hear, but that's where I'm at.
I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. And the first thing is, you know, really, how did the dock get in there in the first place? I mean, it is 2006 that it was turned down. And I don't really understand why there was this great compromise, and how do we get to that point? And just what was the process of getting to that point? I think everyone would like to know that too, but I certainly would like to know.
Well, if you're directing that at me, Mark, I wouldn't say the city compromised on anything. How did the dock get there? Somewhere along the line between preliminary plat and final plat, an outlot that had preliminary plat restrictions, outlot C, very,
Right,
we've all seen the minutes, we all understand what the intention was.
right,
But somewhere down the line after that, that got bifurcated into outlot H, which had absolutely no restrictions against it. And none of us were working for the city then, and so none of us can take ownership of how that happened, but it did happen.
and when was that again? I'm sorry.
That was in 2006.
Right, okay,
And so when the development resumed out there, I assumed the developer at the time took a look at what was allowed and what wasn't allowed in that outlot, which is now 2 outlots.
right.
Found that outlot C, non-riparian, had restrictions, outlot H had none. And so I think we all understand the flavor of what was meant for the riparian lot. But the technicality is an important technicality in that no regulations were put on outlot H. So the developer, I assume, relying on no restrictions on outlot H, as strange as that would seem intellectually, went ahead and put a dock there.
And when did dock H appear? Or not dock H, but the lot H?
To my
When?
knowledge, in the last couple of years.
Last couple of years,
Mhm.
okay? And
Okay,
then,
well, how about this? Somewhere between 2006 and now, that dock appeared there on outlot H that had no prohibitions listed against it.
yeah,
Your question was, when did outlot H?
appear,
Outcrop H. Somewhere at the final plat stage, Mark, that got delineated between outlot C and outlot H, even though in the preliminary plat drawing, it wasn't that way.
right? And so later
That
on,
was February of 2006, if you're looking for an answer to that question.
I don't think we were looking for an answer from you, but thank you.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
well,
so it's 2006 that lot H probably came up at that
Yes.
point.
Yes. So to answer the second part of that question, the city didn't compromise here. We're also hamstrung by an ordinance provision about
Mhm.
whether or not that CUP voided somehow in those 2 years.
Mhm.
So the two things coupled together put the city in a bad spot here with an ordinance provision that can be interpreted 2 ways, depending on whether you like it or whether you don't,
Mhm.
and an outlot H that exists in this development that has no regulations against it. And so what I think has been left out of this conversation is when it got to the planning commission stage,
Mhm.
the developer made some concessions on this that he didn't believe he needed to make. And the association came also with some things that said, essentially, if there's going to be a dock there, these are the things that we'd like to see as restrictions put against it. And it's kind of funny, but reasonable people in separate rooms came up with the same kind of stuff, which
Mhm.
became the recipe for what these restrictions are. And so if the whole onus of this problem is a concern by the lake owners there that there be motorized traffic on that dock. And if
Mhm.
that's the genesis of this whole disagreement,
Mhm.
then I think we've done everything we can, both parties coming together at the same time from different places to arrive at that. Can we enforce those as applied by the planning commission amendments to the new CUP?
No, you can't enforce. We have to enforce.
But you're not in charge of enforcing it, and this conversation is here. The answer is yes, we can enforce that, and I assume that if there's motorized activity there in violation of the CUP, assuming it stands and the dock stays there, then does the city have enforcement ability? The answer is yes, in spite of other opinions.
So if they, so what I'm hearing is that there is no motorized vehicles allowed. That's what I read.
Yes.
And that they can only have like canoes and things like that. But to me, when they cut down the weeds or with a DNR approval, to me, that means that they really want to try to get watercraft in there, motorized watercraft.
Mark, you can't decide to overturn the planning commission and what they did here based on a concern that they will violate that CUP. That wouldn't be a reason to overturn it.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand that the citizens are concerned about that.
Okay. Yeah, and I think then the question becomes then, what is the enforcement mechanism we can do?
Well, here's where I get where you see me a lot of times.
Yeah.
I hate speculating about stuff like this.
Mhm.
Do I have in mind what I would do if we were told about a violation out there and we could prove it and we had evidence? Yes, I do. But I don't want to be put into a box about the efforts the city would take to enforce that. I would just like it to suffice to say that if I'm the city attorney and we have credible evidence of a violation of the CUP as it's written now with these restrictions, then we have enforcement abilities, whether it be through a court process or otherwise.
Okay. And that would be the same when it gets turned over to the owners rather than the developer?
Yes.
The association would be.
The association?
Yes.
Hmm. Okay.
As some of you know, I am a resident of Clark Lake. Am I happy with it? No. Am I happy with the traffic now? No. Over so many years, I've seen the traffic go up on Clark Lake. Used to be a quiet lake. You could row on it. Am I happy with the HS pulled by the developer to change the outcropping from seed to agency? No. Do I think we're in a bind? Yes. I've talked with the city attorney for a long time over this. I'm torn because I don't want it there. But I'll be keeping an eye on it as far as if any motorized or watercraft is going in and out of there onto that so-called dock. And if you want, I'll give you my number after the meeting. If you see something funny, give me a call, because the first person I will contact will be our city attorney. Well, excuse me, our city planner. She will then talk with who she needs to. Yeah, I'm not happy with it. That's all I have to say.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Tom, from the planning commission meeting, were there items that were now on the developer's to-do list to complete from that? Was there anything that needed to get done? There's a reference to what time frame do they have to complete that certain things, and so I'm just wondering if that's. It
Jenny,
seems.
Do you mean the conditions? You mean the amended CUP conditions?
Yes.
Number 3 speaks about signage posted on the dock confirming no motorized use.
Okay.
I don't know if that's there. Oh, yeah, I think there was actually something about their governance. Yeah, homeowners association covenants, their governance would be updated to reflect the above limits and restrictions. Oh, so those are things we would need to follow up with Terra Vista about, assuming this sticks, are those things, signage and the governance changes.
Okay. And absent having a specific timeline identified with that, is that just something you feel comfortable working? Should this stay with the city planner on, or do, would the council need to help with that? Or I just want to make sure that, expectations are
Yeah.
clear.
No, I'm comfortable that we can get that taken care of. And if we can't get it taken care of, Brittany and I, then we'll bring it back to the council.
Great.
Mayor, if I may, then, if there's a motion to be made here, then it would be either to uphold the planning commission's decision and deny the appeal, or the alternative would be to reverse the planning commission and grant the appeal.
I'm looking at new business. Clark Lake Conservation is to request to discuss Pine Trails development which is what we've done. Were we looking for?
It really just depended on how the conversation went. So yes, you're absolutely inclined to do that. I think you should give direction.
Mayor,
Feel
it was
free to do that.
characterized by Mark Severson's letter as an appeal of the planning commission's decision to the city council, which is consistent with your zoning ordinance. The planning commission is the final stop on CUPs, and you sit as a board of appeals for that.
Okay. Thank you. In that case, council?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll make a stab at it, that the city council denies the appeal of the Clark Lake Association for the Pine Trails Plat discussion about Outlot H, and reaffirms its agreement with the planning commission on its decision and the points, the 11 points generated by the planning commission.
So Don, to be just a little more flesh to that, are you recommending in your motion that the planning commission's action be upheld and that the appeal be denied?
Yes,
And are you recommending that the conditional use permit as amended be upheld by the city council?
that's the one and the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion?
I'll second to move it along to a vote.
Motion and a second. Further discussion, council? None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Moving on, new business. Number 2, a resolution approving preliminary 2021 tax collectible for 2022.
I'll move the resolution as presented by the city staff.
Second
I second.
discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 3, set truth and taxation meeting date, December 21st, 2021. At 6:30 PM, council chambers. Oh, I was reading too far.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to set the truth and taxation meeting date, December 21st, 2021 at 6:30 PM.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approve. I'm mixed up here. Approve a estimate from Can-Am Tactical Canine LLC.
I move that we approve that.
I'll second.
Second. I know this is an estimate only. I just have one question, if the chief can answer. We've got the total down. Did we think it was going to exceed that? Or do we know? We just don't know.
That total, I think, is only the price of the dog.
Yeah,
Correct. That won't change.
okay.
The other estimates are equipment that goes along with it that we're not 100% sure.
Can they
on.
get equipment? That's the way everything else is. You
Well,
never
and
know.
this reflects the dog and training.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's the package.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Okay.
okay. So all those in, any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Just one last thing, Craig, chief. I was thinking of this earlier. Once Connor gets up and running and everything, there might be an opportunity for him to work tracking with the fire department's drone. That'd be kind of interesting, to see how.
Do you have a volunteer from the council to be the trackee? I'm not sure anybody here looks like they can run fast enough.
It would be a station, we'd start out with stationary tracking.
Just need a couple hour head start.
Well, Don's the speedster, so you know.
Well, hopefully at some point in the future, we can bring the dog in here for you to meet and maybe do a
That'd be great.
demonstration of
Yeah,
drug detection.
thank Connor for his work and thank him for wanting to take on the extra.
I will.
Appreciate it. Okay. Number 5, recommendation from the Planning Commission, Roy's Landing preliminary plat.
So
Brittany.
for those of you that don't know, the property that's kind of learned to become the Savageau property as it's been known, has sold to a new individual. And my attempt at correspondence with Mr. Savageau have gone unanswered, and we're running down on that Minnesota State Statute 462.358 clock. So we are forwarding you a recommendation of denial to avoid an automatic approval.
I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation from Planning Commission for that the Roy's Landing preliminary plat be denied.
I'll say that with a change, if you'd agree, that we adopt the findings of fact as presented too.
Oh, stand corrected. Yeah.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
It looked like you had a question.
I just had one question. So the new developer or the new owner, they put in a preliminary plat, correct? They
No, we have
not?
received nothing at this time.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Number 6, recommendation from Planning Commission, Alluring Pines West final plat.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the city council approve the Alluring Lines West final plat as presented by staff along with its findings of fact.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Recommendation from the Planning Commission for an ordinance revision.
So this revision is before you on behalf of our legal advice. This is to clear up that language that we heard about during item F1 in regards to if you read it one way, it appears to say one thing. If you read another, it appears to say another. So this is kind of our way to make the code actually understandable, take out that ambiguity.
So if I understand this right, then Tom, this would exempt planned unit developments from having to apply again?
From being subject to that 2-year auto expire,
Okay,
which was a main sticking point in that discussion with Pine Trail. So the way it was written previously, it could be interpreted either way. I really think it was meant to be that planned unit developments were meant to be excluded from that 2 years. So Brittany wrote it this way at my urging, and I think it makes sense to clarify that so we don't have an issue like this again.
And Mr. Mayor, the reason that they do that for PUDs is PUDs usually take more than 2 years to develop. In 3 or 4 years, they do it in stages.
okay. All right. That answered my next question.
That's my question too.
Your mind reader.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the conditional use permit ordinance changes presented by staff and authorize the city clerk to publish a summary ordinance.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion in a second, just for those of us who are ignorant, not like our learned colleague, Don. So is there a reason, would there ever be a reason why you would want to planned unit develop PUD to expire? Or is it just because of the nature of a PUD, it could take Lord knows how long to fill out?
12 years. Think of it, many years.
I suppose I'll
I don't-
defer to the attorney. I suppose in the agreement, you could say, we won't do it in 2 years, but we'll give you 8 years or 10 years and put a time limit on that
I
way.
just more of a, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Clear as mud. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And recommendation from Planning Commission for an ordinance revision. Planning Commission seat requirements.
So this was what I had brought forward to you as a potential ordinance change coming forward, where we were considering allowing 2 business owners on the commission. Planning Commission kind of edited that a little bit, as you'll see in the draft in front of you, where they wanted 3 years worth of either mortgage or lease records, and then limit it to only 1 local business owner on the Planning Commission at a time. It would have to be Nisswa. It wouldn't be, you can't own a business in Florida and then serve on the Planning Commission. It would need to be Nisswa.
Why would we be interested in business owners and not say seasonal?
You mean seasonal residents?
Mhm.
The biggest reason, in my opinion, is just accessibility. Living in Minnesota, if you were to live, just pick on the metro area, for you to get up here for a nighttime weekday meeting is much more, there's much more potential for issues to come up, as opposed to if you were, say, living in Pequot or Cross Lake or something, you have, 12 miles to go instead of 3 hours. And then, sorry, one additional item is I've had a lot of people, both from the business community, not from the business community, express interest to me that it would be a beneficial viewpoint to see within the city. But I also think that's a big reason why they limited to 2, is just because we want that viewpoint brought in, but at the same time, we don't want it to overhaul.
So are there stipulations on how, say, a business owner lives in Duluth?
If you live in, or if you own your business in Nisswa, I guess that's something that myself, the chair, and then subsequently the city council would have to all agree is something we're willing to take the risk on. So ultimately, myself and the chair interview and then forward you a recommendation. From there, you guys do have the authority to say no.
How many meetings do they have to attend per year?
They have to make 9.
Well, they have to actually make 12, but if they are gone for whatever reason, if it's approved by the chair of the planning commission, they can be excused from the couple meeting. But basically, they should be at all of them.
Correct.
Okay. What I'd like to see.
Hmm.
I'd like to see a 12 meeting commitment, but
Well, not everybody, even the
oh, I know.
current
Us don't
people
have it.
can do it.
I know, even we don't do that,
That's,
but try to.
Things come up.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
I wasn't there at the last meeting.
Yeah.
I'm looking at section 2.24B, and it says, no more than one member of the commission may be a non-resident business owner within the city of Nisswa.
Yep.
Okay, you have to be a business owner, but the next line, it talks about rent records and everything else.
Mhm.
You're not renting if you're the owner, are you?
That's the thing though, is a lot of our business spaces are simply lease. A lot of them are owned by either big corporations or there's a couple families that own a number of them. So it would be non-helpful to.
Yeah,
make it
so,
rural.
so if you're a business owner and you actually own the business, there's no time limitation on it. You can come right up and get on. If you own property, but if you don't own it, if you lease it, you have to wait for 3 years before you can.
Yep. And then
Okay.
if for any reason your business were to no longer be up and running for any reason at all, your planning commission term would end simultaneously.
And basically in the city of Nisswa, business owners that own property are very few, right?
Correct.
Most people are renters,
Yeah,
just so that you're aware of that.
Mayor Ryan, I don't know if you want to call for any public comments. I just don't want to assume if there's comments from the
Yeah,
audience or
yeah,
not.
if there's
So I-
anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this, that's please.
Hi, I'm Trish Van Pilsum, 25221 Bass Lake Road in Nisswa. And you know how you guys are always talking about how you really can't engage in spot zoning? That is, you can't make a zoning decision based on the needs of one person or one project. This feels a little bit like that to me. So the decision is, I know that there are 2 openings right now, and those have to be filled quickly. And I know that there are a couple of non-property owners who are business proprietors, I think to clarify that, who have been persistent in their interest to be on the commission. But that doesn't mean you should change the rules just to accommodate those people. And I would say that this is a short-term problem, but a change like this could have long-term impact. To open the commission to people who don't own property in Nisswa is a really big deal. They don't vote here. They don't pay taxes here. They don't really have to live with the consequences of their decisions. So I'm not going to read the entire letter I submitted outlining my concerns about the policy change, but I want to pose a couple of questions for you to consider as you're making a decision on this issue. 1, does a business proprietor who doesn't live in Nisswa or even own property in Nisswa have more at stake in planning commission decisions than people who own property or homes in Nisswa just because their property isn't homesteaded? Wouldn't you really open the pool of possible candidates even wider if you change the rules to allow not just non-property owners, but property owners who aren't homesteaded? Many of those property owners have been paying taxes, supporting the community, and supporting the businesses for years, sometimes decades. And they have a critical interest in what the Planning Commission does. Is it fair to open up the commission to one group and not the other? Is it fair? Are there other ways for non-property owning, non-resident business proprietors to have their interests represented at the Planning Commission and ultimately to you, the City Council? Like Couldn't they appear here and talk to you the way I am? Have they ever done that? There wasn't one at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting where they discussed that issue. Is there anybody here now? Are there other ways to publicize openings for the commission to reach Nisswa residents? Could you advertise in the Brainerd paper instead of just the Echo? You may reach more local residents that way. Could you send emails to people who put their name and address on this list here because they're interested in everything the city does? Has the city done enough research before making such a dramatic policy change? I checked with several cities and towns, all with big summer populations, Pequot Lakes, Alexandria, Grand Marais, Bemidji. I haven't found a single city that allows people who don't own property to serve on their planning and zoning commissions. All but one allow any resident, whether they're homesteaded or not, to serve on the planning and zoning commission, which is not to say you have to do what other towns do, but I think it's interesting to note. Now, staff has said that someone who lives, say, in the Twin Cities may not be reliable in attendance. Wouldn't the same be true for business people who don't live in town? Now, right now, apparently, the two people who are really interested live close by, but that may not always be the case. Once you change the policy, wouldn't it be possible for a local business owner who spends the winter in Florida or Arizona to be on the commission? Now, Brittany will say that 3 missed meetings, that policy that you can't miss 3 meetings, will ensure good attendance, regardless of whether they own property in town. Well, I would say the same would be true of seasonal residents. If seasonal residents make a commitment to be on the commission, they will meet that obligation. I would argue that there are many of us, and by the way, I don't want a seat on the commission, but in general, there are many of us who have driven back and forth to Nisswa because of an issue we're interested in 3 times a month. 3 nights a month, we're here. 1 night a month would be a break in that schedule. We can do it. We can do it. Could you use technology to zoom in people who aren't here if they got stuck in a blizzard? I saw it done. I'm sure it was either planning and zoning or public works. One of the members zoomed in. One more quick but important point. Now, just because a property owner doesn't run a business doesn't mean they don't understand the importance of a thriving local economy. All of us want booming businesses. We want great and busy restaurants. We want great and busy shops. In fact, I would argue we need more of all of those things. We love Nisswa, not just the way it is, but because it has such great potential. And that's why we're asking you to either deny the proposal to allow non-property owners on the commission or open it up to everybody, including non-homesteaded property owners. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Brad Berkland, 972 Bass Lake Road in 924. Thank you. I really do appreciate you guys allowing us to speak to this topic. I'm opposed to the proposed changes to the Municipal Planning Commission eligibility requirements because I don't think business interests align with the conservation interests of this region's most valuable asset, clean water. From my perspective, business interests are already well, if not overrepresented in both the Planning Commission and the City Council. And I believe it's a conflict of interest to have business owners whose purpose is to make money be involved in development decisions that affect the size of their customer base, especially if they don't reside or own property within city limits. The Nisswa Planning Commission application asks for potential conflicts of interest at the bottom of the form. It says, quote, conflicts of interest may arise by the participation in any activity, recommended action, or decision from which you receive or could potentially receive direct or indirect personal financial gain. I'd argue all business owners gain financially by increasing their customer base. Even with the best of intentions, humans fall prey to cognitive biases, which unconsciously distort our objective decision-making judgment. There is a Minnesota statute for county boards planning commissions, chapter 394.30 subdivision 1, that states, no voting member of a commission shall have received during the 2 years prior to appointment any substantial portion of income from business operations involving the development of land within the county for urban and urban-related purposes. If the city were to add 2 business owners to the planning commission, I fear there would be no pushback whatsoever on any developments. And I'd feel even more strongly that residents have no say in the process. Would we be left with no option but to double and triple check details of every development proposal to make sure business owners aren't pushing through high density developments that don't adhere to Nisswa's ordinance? Just recently, a land designer with 30 years experience in the Brainerd Lakes region and a developer, neither of whom reside in the city of Nisswa, almost got away with a preliminary plat that had significantly more density than Nisswa's ordinance allows. Without a conditional use permit or variance, by avoiding a common design layout standard for subdividing land by preliminary plat. Nisswa's ordinance section 4.11.4, design layout standards minimum, requires that proposers remove land with slopes exceeding 12% from lot size calculations. They tried to get away with it. I mean, that's what developers do. They don't ask for permission. They ask for what is it? Forgiveness. They ask for forgiveness, not permission. If it weren't for residents, the green space and wetlands that protect the Gull Lake chain's water would have been subjected to more density than Nisswa's ordinance allows. Like the Clark Lake Conservation Association dock dispute, it feels like the city of Nisswa rewards those who ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Is the reason there are 2 open spots in the planning commission because business owners, and I'm a business owner. I like business owners. I have nothing against business owners. But I do think there's a conflict of interest. Is it because business owners who reside in other cities have not had enough input in the process?
Yeah.
Or is it because the planning commission member who attempted to protect the region's most important asset, clean water, felt they had no say in the process? From my perspective, the proposed ordinance change feels like a power grab that favors business owners over residents. And to me, it does not feel right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, Brittany?
I just didn't know if I
Oh.
was coming for questions in case there
Oh,
were any.
Wasn't the ordinance already for the planning and zoning changed this year once
Not to my knowledge.
on a voting or a quorum?
Yeah, for a quorum, if we don't have a quorum, the liaison can.
And so
sit
the
in.
reason is because we can't find people to be on, okay.
Correct.
We're down 2 seats. I do know that, and we may disagree on this. Councilman Carl Kramer and I, a few years ago, met with area business personnel and stuff, trying to figure out, okay, how come everyone around us at the time seemed to be growing? I mean, they seemed to get businesses coming in. They had industrial park areas, things like that. And what was it about Nisswa? And, we found out, that there was a number of things that they said. I don't believe I shared that with Jenny. I found my information the notes and that. And businesses are, Nisswa doesn't have one heart, has a lot of them. The business community downtown especially is one of them. A lot of people trace a lot of memories back to it. So, businesses, and how do we expand a tax base intelligently, taking care of the water and the environment, but also, you know, opportunities for jobs in the city, which is our comprehensive plan. How do we build affordable housing, which is in the comprehensive plan? How do we do all that? And that's where we were addressing those business people. And they do feel some, I believe some, you know, that genuinely, there's certain things that the city can't do, would lower the cost of land. And we had a lot of good information, a lot of good feedback from that meeting. I don't, you know, about advertising on the web. We have it posted on our website. People that are interested and are significantly interested in what's going on in the city. I mean, that's where they need to go. Check it out. It's there. It's, our website is much better than it used to be. I think we have a pretty good website. We're only looking at one person, not two. We have 2 open seats, but we're only thinking of one person from a business aspect. So just so that's clear, there's no way that they're going to be able to form a quorum on the committee. Having other, you know, who do you allow on, the other ideas that were brought up? Yeah, I see that, you know, but this is where we're at. So I don't know, you know, do we want to vote on it tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think people have to realize that just not anybody gets on the planning commission. We advertise in the Echo, in the Brainerd paper. We do it on the internet. We've done a lot of advertising. We just can't get anybody to come. But even if somebody expresses an interest, they have to go through a criminal background check before they can serve on the commission. They also have to be interviewed by Jenny and the chair, Brittany, interviews. And then the recommendation comes to the city council, and the city council then makes a decision. So there's 3 decision points in the process. And I've been around government for 35 years almost. And it's to the point now where people simply don't care to get involved in government commissions. I've asked people up here to apply. They don't want the headache. They don't want the problems. And so what do? We have to conduct business one way or another. And the step we're taking here with only one out of 5, I think is reasonable, and I think we should do it. And if they're a business owner, they have a vested interest in making sure everything runs well in the city because they own property here. If it doesn't work out, you can change it later.
I've maybe came at this a little naive just because I've lived in this town pretty much my whole life. I've worked in this town my whole life. I've been here on the winters. I've been here during the lean times. And so, and I know a lot of these business owners, and I know the ones that are, and they're good men and women. They have vested interest. They have Nisswa at their best heart. You know, you can get to go down that line. You can get other people coming on to this with an agenda to, you know, only focus on one area instead of the whole town. I can say that, you know, I am probably changed a little bit to one person to start with. And I kind of agree with some of the stuff, but there's also a voice of retail and business that has been missing on the planning and zoning. And it does affect the decisions. And you know, everyone can say we want business and do, but then we make it so that it's either it costs them more money to build, or there's restrictions that just don't work and they just end up, you know, going away. Or I remember being part of one conversation where someone said, well, I don't know why parking lots need to be so big. Well, Schaefer's needs their parking lot because if your parking lot's full, then that's all the people that can be in your store. And you have boats and you have campers. I mean, there's this reasoning that's not just as simple as saying we have a smaller parking lot if that's what your business, dictates. Same as Wendy's. Well, you look at Wendy's in the summer and all the boats that are parked out there and all, especially before COVID. So there's times where having a business perspective would be in Nisswa's best interest. And to bring that to planning and zoning, I think would be a benefit to a zoning more than a distraction or some, it being for selfish reasons. And so I am for this. I definitely agree with the one person. And I also think that it's worth a try. As Don said, and I'd be the first one. If it's not working out, if it's looking like it's focusing on special interests, then, we can deal with that. But I think it's worth a try. And I think that I'm hopeful that it does bring a little bit of perspective towards business and what business needs to reasonably operate and reasonably, want to build here and want to be part of our community and bring in more business. So.
Okay.
Are there currently any business owners on the planning and zoning as of tonight?
No, not current business owners. There's no, excuse me, we've talked about this. Brainerd is where his family owns a resort, but as far as local business owners at this time, we do not.
But there is one sitting on there whose family owns a business.
Correct, in Brainerd, yep.
But he lives, he has a year-round house in Nisswa.
He's a Nisswa resident.
Yeah.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the recommendation of the planning commission to allow one business owner within the city as set by the ordinance changes presented by the planning commission.
A second.
Further discussion, council? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Mayor, I also move that we authorize the city clerk to publish a summary ordinance.
I'll second.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Recommendation from the Public Works Committee, road standard update.
Good evening, everybody. So you have a memo in your packet that I laid out basically what happened at the Public Works Committee and what we're looking to do. Part of your packet is also a drawing that shows the new road standard. Basically, we simplified the road standard overall. We took it from, we had a system where we were looking at urban and residential, or excuse me, we had urban and rural sections before. Now we're looking at it as a residential and a commercial. So we went, we've simplified it down to 3 different sections, you'd say, instead of, I believe we had 6 before. And the other thing that we're looking to do is apply the road standard to every road that's built in Nisswa, whether you're public or private. Basically, in essence, we're saying that all roads will be public, will default public, and it would be up to any entity wanting to build a new road in Nisswa to look for a variance from that requirement and justify it. I think they'd find it hard to do. We've had several developments recently coming in where they're looking to put in private roads, and I can't really see a reason why they want to do that. Usually it's to skimp on the quality of the construction, drainage issues, and width of the road. And what it does is it creates problems for emergency vehicles, service vehicles such as garbage trucks, and the quality of life of the people that live there. Usually the developer is in it, when he's choosing a type of road standard to use, he's doing it to try to conserve money. But usually that cost doesn't get, cost savings doesn't get passed on to the prospective new homeowner. And a lot of times it's a second and third generation homeowner that, you know, they think that they're paying taxes, that they're entitled to government services such as snow plowing. And they come to find out that, no, you live on a private road, it's up to you to pay for that. So we also have some that are currently gravel roads, would like to have them paved. And they find out that the city won't simply repave it, that it's up to them. And they're wondering why at the time of the time the development is built, why didn't the city have a requirement for a road standard in their development? So, in summary, I guess we're looking to pass the road standard that I've outlined for you here. And we're recommending that you apply that. And I would ask if you have any questions about what I've given you in the packet.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Tom and I had a discussion prior to this meeting that I had some questions about. In the memo dated 9/7, Ted outlines the staff recommendation. That recommendation is, the staff recommendation is to adopt a new road standard that encourages developers to use public roads in their plans. And I looked at the word encourages. Now, if I'm a developer and I'm going to put in some roads, and I find out that the city standard road design is going to cost me $50,000 to put in. But if I put in a private road design and gravel it instead of blacktopping it, I can do it for $5,000. Which way am I going to jump as a developer? My question was that there's nothing in here that says the developer has to do it to the city standards. They encourage it, but they don't mandate it. So it's like, there's nothing there. You can just disregard it. And I would assume that most developers would rather save the money than to put in the blacktop and go to the city standards. And I'm not against having a standard, but I'm saying that we should have the verbiage someplace that you must meet the city standard, or some verbiage such as that to make it mandatory, rather than, well, if you don't like it, we encourage you to use it, but if you don't like it, gee, we're sorry.
I agree with Don.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah.
Brittany and I did have a brief conversation while we exchanged emails about that, because I asked her if these standards were reflective in our city code currently, because if they were, we'd want to amend the code as opposed to adopting, you know, a standard policy. And she said in the code it's referenced must comply with the adopted road standards. So that might answer your question, where if we adopt standards, then they would apply. Am I on the right track?
The only thing
Okay.
we have in front of us is this drawing.
Right.
Is that the road standard?
This would be the new road standard, yes.
Personally, I don't think that would handle that. I think there's someplace in there, you gotta say that this is the standard that you'll comply with.
I'm all for
That's my
changing the
feeling.
language to what you're suggesting, Don.
Can you do that?
I can amend it, yeah.
Okay. So before I vote on it, I'd rather it be amended, because I mean, I'm with Don.
I would say this, that the Public Works Committee, when we looked at it, and you can confirm this for me, Mark, if you can. The feeling of that committee was that it would be mandatory, and there would be very few, if any, exceptions to our road standard.
We just ran into a verbiage or wordages situation earlier today, and I don't want to run into that again. So I mean,
Understood?
I'd appreciate it. I know it's hard work and it's got to go back. And
Do we need to do that? Because it's going to be mandated to the city standard whenever we can make approvals for any type of development. And that's what this shall be.
yeah. I'd like Tom to weigh in on it, on the wordage, if he might, because I don't want to get caught again with something, because I know it says, I know what it says in your, I've got those right here. But then when I heard in the meeting what was said, and as Don pointed out, it was encouraged. So that's a,
And I'm not against the road standard. That's good as long.
Yeah, I'm on it.
As long as it's in black and white, so I know what it is. Otherwise, we're gonna have gravel roads in some areas, I would assume. But I'd be satisfied with a couple word changes and it would work just fine.
I'm fine with providing that, I guess. We can either amend it and bring it back for final approval, or you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Time, can they approve it with, if I amend that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's just a matter of just using the word require instead of encourage, I mean, by implication of what Tom is saying is that this is a road standard and people understand that it is the rule and it is incorporated into the ordinance by reference, whatever the current road standard is. But if it's a matter of just approving this tonight, subject to Tom's group changing that word from encourage to require, if that's as simple as it is, I think you could do that without having to kick it back and forth again.
Yeah, because it won't change anything in the committee. I do believe that's what the committee wanted to see.
Yeah, it was understood it'd be required.
Yeah.
We're trying to avoid all those other types of roads.
Tom, for example, the Bass Lake Road area, okay? We weren't looking at building a road. We were looking at having the easement. Wow, the lot, the 66 foot platted in so that if in the future, if it were to happen, it could happen. Okay. Are we telling people now that same thing here? Nope, it's going to be 66 feet, but you got to build it now, the public road standard, or you have to set the 66 feet aside, or am I getting mixed up?
So if it's a road that isn't meant to be built currently, they would have to, if there's ever an intention and it becomes a city street,
It
if
would
they're gonna
have to
build
be-
a city street,
Correct.
you can't just build a temporary private one. If you're building a street, it has to be to this standard.
Because I can read that encourages developers to use public roads, stipulates that they can have a private road instead.
Yeah, and with all the
So
discussion we've
that's-
had here, we're eliminating that possibility. We're saying all
So
roads. will be
can we
public.
table it and have it come back? Or,
Well, I think that his memo is just for your information. We're not adopting the memo. We're adopting,
We're adopting the standard.
yeah, so,
which is this,
and I think everyone's
Right.
clear
It
on what
doesn't
we,
have the word encourage in it.
correct.
Yeah.
That's just Tom's
Okay.
memo. I mean,
Yeah,
so
and
we're
that's just
fine.
that,
this is the expectation of the city that you want to see for roads.
yeah, that's what I figured. I just, okay. Okay. Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve it as written, except that if you want, put in a memo
No,
that it is
no.
required. We don't need to do that, right? So then I move that we approve the new road standard recommendation as put forth in the material in front of us here.
I'll second.
Question?
Yep.
Does that mean now that if we adopt this, that there's no more smaller size roads going in the city, no gravel roads? They're all gonna be 60 foot, 66 foot. They're all gonna be blacktop, period. Okay,
I don't know if I've ever had somebody come into my office and ask for a gravel road.
well, We have some in the city already. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't adopt a standard that didn't make a developer do the right thing the first time.
Well, yeah. I guess the only other question I have on it is, you know, how often are people coming into us asking to take over their road and we can't? We just went through this with Rusty. We made it very plain. Do not come later and tell your association members, do not come later and ask us to take over your road because you didn't build it the right size. Our equipment isn't going to work that well on it, number one, just like Linden and just like certain city roads we have right now. So,
But you know, you can't bind a council to future action like that.
well, no, that's true. That's true.
You know, everybody gets hung up on the 66-foot right of way, but really it's not just, you know, everybody thinks that that's how wide the
No.
paving is, and it's not really, but you do have to allow too for some of the modern utilities that are placed in a roadway too. It's the cable TV, it's the internet that we all enjoy, it's the gas service.
Well, you're looking at 10-foot wide lanes on a residential type road. I mean, 20 feet wide travel surface. It's not that big.
I will come back to haunt you if it doesn't work out.
I look forward to it done. We'll have coffee.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
Yeah.
second.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Number 10, payment application 13 from Eagle Construction. Anybody have any questions about it?
Yeah, I had a question. I'm looking at F10 and it said recommended that $50,000 to be released. So that's 50,000 released. On F11, the next one, it looks like the amount is 51,260.
The 11 and 12 are change orders.
10 and 11.
10 is,
Number 10 is a $50,000 release. The change order is 51,260. Is this, am I confused?
Change order is 51,260. He does a $50,000 release. And the change order number 2, that number right now, 30. Difference is $1,620 or what was, and that's what got out the change order. Because they're equalizing the numbers of the change order that was not used.
Well, the two numbers didn't match up, but I was just, if I'm reading it wrong, that's okay.
Yeah, change order number 2 is for $31,500 for the clearing and grubbing, the additional, but they only used $1,240. So there's a remainder of 1,260. So if you add that to 50,000, the 51,260 you're looking at.
51,260. Okay.
okay. So item 10, payment application.
I move the amount of $50,000 for a wastewater treatment facility improvement amount to be released based upon the engineer's letter.
Well, the payment request is for 231,229.
Payment request number 10.
It includes, that includes the 50, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that includes the 50,000 in retainage that we're releasing now because of the work that's been done. We will still have additional retainage upon the completion of the entire project.
66,000, I think, is
Yep.
still left.
So the approval is for the 231,280.29.
I'm gonna go take no notes for the rest of the meeting.
Well, now hopefully we can move it along here. Okay. So do I have a motion for the item 10? For the payment application number 13 from Eagle Construction.
I so move that we have that payment application number 13 from Eagle Construction for $231,280.29.
I second that.
Okay, further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 11, change order number 10 from Eagle Construction. Or this change order is a decrease, right? In 51,260.
I apologize. I was getting the total number that you were talking about, because there's a 12060 in there in this change order.
So this change
reduction.
order is just decreasing the overall contract
Yep.
price.
Mhm.
So
And
just a
it's-
documentation.
It's monies that were had before, but they want to zero it out. That has to do with the funding, so to make sure we don't throw red flags on the contract and try to make it at where it was to begin with.
I'll make a motion.
I'm not gonna say anything.
No.
Motion on number
I'll make a motion to accept change order number 10 from Eagle Construction for 2020 wastewater treatment facility improvements.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 12, change order number 11 for Eagle Construction. This is
For painting, a change of 2 remaining diameter precast concrete for 4-foot diameter. Those were for access. And then the 2-inch tap was for the irrigation that was added to, correct?
So we can blow it out
Yeah.
for winter.
right. Okay,
I'll make a motion that we approve change order number 11 for the amount of $12,385 as presented.
I second.
further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 13, resolution approving mediated settlement agreement and release of claims.
I'll move that the city council approve the settlement agreement between the city and Brandon Rothwell, subject to Mr. Rothwell agreeing into the settlement and signing.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 14, a memo from the Personnel Committee reference city administrator's annual evaluation. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the memo from the Personnel Committee for the administrator's annual evaluation as presented.
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Proposal from Schlerner and Werner,
Schlenner-Wenner.
okay, and company reference to 2021 city Nisswa audit services.
So thank you. I requested a one-year proposal from our current auditors to perform our audit for 2021 as we're getting towards the end of the year here. And in part because we had to complete a single audit this past year, we will have another one for 2021 due to our sewer expansion project and the federal dollars that flow through from that funding. So there's additional requirements that need to be done. And since they started with that process, I'd just like to see that completed. After that, I think it would be a good idea, as we've talked about previously, for the city to get on an RFP rotation for audit services, 3 or 4 years contracts, and then advertise every cycle following that, just to ensure competitive rates and things like that. I don't have a concern from this firm. They've been great to work with. I have nothing but compliments for them. But for now, I just wanted to do the 1 year and then evaluate next year.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we agree to the proposal from Schwenner, Weiner and Company for the city of Nisswa 2021 audit as presented.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on codification final draft from Muni Code.
Thank you. As I have previously communicated to the council, we are in the final stages of our recodification. I provided this memo to the council in an email for your review. I just thought I'd take a moment since you're all here to see if you had any significant questions, concerns. I do need to provide feedback to them by the end of the month. And then it will take a few months to finalize the code, and they will present it to me to bring to the city to have the final adoption, and we'll go through that process as well. So I did highlight a few of the major changes. There weren't that many. It was a lot of cleanup of just organization, how the chapters functioned and read and consolidating some things. So I think it's going to be really, really great once we have that up and running. Shouldn't be any later than the new year. But I just wanted to take an opportunity and ask if you had any questions.
How many pages is it?
I don't know. The draft that I sent you was, I think, just
Two
under,
hundred and 91.
yeah, I was gonna say just under 300, but that's a draft, manuscript version. So I don't know, but I can find out.
And I have it right here if you want to read it.
I didn't get one, so can you make me a copy?
I didn't by default print 5 copies, but I will gladly print you a copy. Yes.
Jenny, he can have mine. I've read it from end to end.
Great. Yes, absolutely. If you need if anyone else needs a hard copy, just let me know.
Just
So-
How hard is it going to be to change or amend a chapter once it's codified? I'm just thinking at the $2,500 mark. With the way prices are today, if that's giving department heads enough leeway but you have more, so they can come to you, right? If they need to spend.
Oh, for purchasing?
Yeah.
It's not hard to change the code. The process will actually be the same. And then what we'll do is at the end of every year, we will have posted what the ordinance amendments throughout the year have been, but then they will recodify whatever happened throughout that year into the new code online. So we'll do that process once a year, just to save some money. But yes, I did. My recommendation is to increase department head spending limits from $1,000 to $2,500. I kept my limit the same right now. It's $10,000.
Okay.
We don't have that many times where it would exceed that without council being involved anyway. So I think it's fine at this time.
Okay.
Okay, well, just let me know if you have any other questions or thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you.
You had it down for council action motion.
Oh, I did. Well, that's okay.
Okay. We don't need to do anything.
Nope. It's fine.
Okay, old business, none. Council reports, I have nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Announcements and upcoming meeting dates are there. So, and you can find them on the website for those watching at home. Motion to adjourn,
I saw a motion.
I second.
all in favor? Aye. Okay, perfect. Yeah. See how tomorrow goes.